In the mid-90s, Nintendo wasn't just a gaming company, it was a cultural religion. They owned 90% of the handheld market and were the undisputed kings of the living room. But behind the reinforced glass of their Kyoto headquarters, the board of directors was staring at a catastrophe they couldn't fix. They were 30 days from a total collapse of their public image, not because of a better product from Sony, but because of a $100 million toy that was physically hurting its players. This wasn't a minor hardware glitch, it was a corporate heart attack. This is the autopsy of the Virtual Boy, the crimson nightmare that nearly ended the Nintendo dynasty a decade before it could reach its peak. To understand how the most disciplined company in Japan almost destroyed itself, we have to look at the man who built it, Gunpei Yokoi. In the world of Nintendo, Yokoi was a god. He didn't just design games, he designed childhoods. He was the janitor turned engineer who invented the D-pad and the Game Boy. By 1994, Yokoi's track record was flawless. He had saved Nintendo from bankruptcy in the 70s with his Ultra Hand toy, and he had turned them into a global superpower with the Game Boy. So when Yokoi walked into the boardroom with a vision for Project VR32, the world's first portable 3D virtual reality system, the board didn't just listen, they bowed. They gave him a blank check and total autonomy. It was a classic case of corporate hubris. Because they believed in the man, they stopped questioning the machine. They were so blinded by their past wins that they couldn't see the crimson train wreck heading straight for them. Yokoi's original vision was a technological marvel, full-color 3D immersion. But the laws of physics and the reality of 1995 manufacturing had other plans. To make the device portable, it needed to be light. To make it affordable, it needed to be cheap. The high-performance color screens of the era were too heavy, too expensive, and drained batteries in minutes. Nintendo's engineers faced a brutal choice: kill the project or pivot. They pivoted to high-efficiency red LEDs. Imagine staring directly into a laser-lit abyss for 4 hours. That was the Virtual Boy experience. The red and black display didn't just look archaic, it caused literal nausea, dizziness, and intense eye strain. Internal testers were coming out of sessions with splitting migraines. The engineers knew the product was fundamentally flawed. Yokoi himself begged for more time to refine the tech, but the corporate gears had already started turning. By late 1994, Nintendo had already poured over $100 million into the Virtual Boy's development, marketing, and manufacturing. In the business world, this is the sunk cost fallacy, the psychological trap where you keep pouring money into a failing project just because you've already spent so much. But there was another pressure point: the Nintendo 64. The N64 was behind schedule and over budget. Nintendo needed a bridge product to keep the cash flowing and to distract the public from Sony's upcoming PlayStation. The board made a cold, calculated, and ultimately disastrous decision. They would launch the Virtual Boy anyway. They decided to treat their most loyal fans as beta testers for a product they knew wasn't ready. July 21st, 1995. The Virtual Boy hits the shelves in Japan. The marketing campaign was massive, promised the future of gaming. But when the public finally put the headset on, the reaction wasn't awe, it was confusion. Why was it red? Why was it on a tripod? Why did it hurt to look at? The sales numbers were a flat line. In North America, the situation was even worse. Retailers who had cleared massive shelf space for the next big thing found themselves holding a mountain of plastic they couldn't give away. Within 30 days, the Crimson Nightmare had become a reality. Blockbuster Video, one of Nintendo's biggest partners, reported that customers were returning the rentals within hours, complaining of headaches. The Virtual Boy didn't just fail, it became a joke. For the first time in 20 years, Nintendo's brand was toxic. A failure this public, this expensive, required a sacrifice. Despite the board of directors approving every shortcut and every LED choice, the blame was funneled toward one man, Gunpei Yokoi. In the rigid hierarchy of Japanese corporate culture, someone had to take responsibility. Yokoi, the man who built the empire, was isolated. He was stripped of his resources and relegated to a minor role. After 30 years of genius, the man who invented the D-pad was forced into a voluntary retirement that felt more like an exile. This is the part of the autopsy that hurts the most. Nintendo didn't just lose $100 million, they lost their soul. By 1996, Nintendo was in a death spiral. The Virtual Boy was officially discontinued after only 770,000 units, a rounding error for a company of their size. Their bank accounts were draining, and the N64 was still a year away. They had one last, desperate card to play. A weird, buggy project from a tiny developer called Game Freak that had been in development hell for 6 years. It was a game about collecting bugs in your pocket. Nintendo poured their final marketing dollars into a dying platform, the original Game Boy, to launch Pocket Monsters. It was the ultimate gamble. If Pokémon failed, Nintendo would have likely been forced to merge or exit the hardware business entirely. Pokémon didn't just succeed, it became the most profitable media franchise in history. It saved Nintendo. But the scar of the Virtual Boy remained. It changed the company's DNA forever. They stopped trying to outmuscle Sony and Microsoft with raw power. They returned to Yokoi's core philosophy.
Lateral thinking with withered technology. The idea that you don't need the newest tech, you need the best experience. The motion controls of the Wii, the portability of the Switch, these are the direct descendants of the Virtual Boy's failure. Nintendo learned that a gimmick is only a gimmick if it doesn't serve the player. Gunpei Yokoi died in a tragic car accident in 1997, just as the Game Boy was seeing a second life through his successor's work. He never got to see how his greatest failure actually saved the company he loved. The Virtual Boy is often called the worst console ever made, but in the long arc of business history, it was the most important mistake Nintendo ever made. It killed their arrogance, and in doing so, it ensured their survival. Nintendo survived their nightmare, but their greatest rival, Sega, made the exact same mistake with the Dreamcast, and they didn't have a Pikachu to save them. Click here to see the autopsy of the console that actually killed Sega. Watch. Why Sega failed?